Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of the Fishing Teacher, and man, I really appreciate you guys checking today's video out. Guys, today we're going to be giving some tips and advice on how to catch fish on windy days, sort of what you need to do, what you need to look for when it's the best. And I think it's going to add up to some good fish for you guys because you know, the weather changes every day, and you can't pick and choose, you know, what the weather's going to be like. So sometimes you got to get out there and fish in the wind. So we're going to get into that. Also, guys, before we get started, I want to invite everybody out there, anyone interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, you can do that by going to my Facebook page, Randy Blockett Professional Angler, and shoot me a private message. And I do my lessons mainly here on Table Rock Lake in Missouri and Stockton Lake, and I'll give you all the info for that. So much appreciated. Okay, guys, one of the things about bass fishing or fishing in general is you've got to learn how to catch fish in all different weather conditions, and every single weather condition dictates a different approach, different techniques, different areas, and that type of stuff. But what I wanted to talk about today is fishing on those days where the wind's blowing pretty hard. And when I'm talking about a hard wind, I'm talking about like a sustained 15-mile-an-hour wind, anywhere between that 15 to 25 mile an hour range. Now, if you start to get over 25 miles an hour fishing, it's a very difficult to fish, and it really makes it challenging. I don't care where you're fishing at. But a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind is pretty common, and it can actually be a pretty positive. So first of all, let's talk about how the different times of the year affects wind as far as how it's going to be productive or not for you guys. For the most part, wind has a lot to do with water temperature. Wind is not your friend in cold water. So if you're dealing with high winds in the wintertime when it's really cold, it's not going to be the big help for you. It's not going to activate the fish. It's going to make it more difficult to fish because in the wintertime you're fishing with slower lures, and it's harder to fish a slow lure in the wind. So a wind is not a big plus in the wintertime. But once that water temperature starts to get above 50 degrees, that's when wind can actually help you out based upon the clarity of the water in association with the wind. Now, a general rule of thumb is the wind will help out any body of water that has clear water more. A strong wind will. So if you're dealing with water clarities that have like over 4 foot of clarity in a lake, a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind, if you have water temperature over, say, 60 degrees, usually always activates the fish. It's a good thing to have that. Now, it may make it a little bit more challenging and difficult to fish at times, depending upon what you're doing. But that wind will always activate the fish almost out of any direction that it's out of. It's better on a south wind, but wind is wind a lot of times as far as breaking up the surface, and it can help out. What you want to concentrate on anytime it's wind, well, first of all, before we get out, let's talk about the other conditions here. The second condition as far as how it affects it, you know, wind and clear water is a bonus, and as your water clarity decreases, wind does not quite become a big of a factor unless it's the summertime of the year, which will really help out, because if you're dealing with warm water, wind is always your friend. I don't care if the water's clear, dirty, in between, wind will always help a bite in the dirty water situations. Now, as far as technique goes, because a lot of times, like I said, you've got to fish whatever the wind is that day, but as technique goes, always try to fish a more active, aggressive power fishing technique if the wind blows. So this is your time that you want to pull out your crankbaits, your spinnerbaits, your chatterbaits, your lipless crankbaits, big swim baits, big glide baits, any type of a lure that you reel horizontally through the water column in fairly shallow water in a larger size. This is the time to take advantage of that, because when you have a strong wind, it makes the fish make mistakes. Strong wind is actually almost like it's sort of like cover to a fish, because if you've got a fish and it's glass calm out there, they can see above the water. I mean, a fish can actually come out of the water to grab something, but if it's super windy, they don't have that advantage. Their visibility is cut down, therefore they make a lot more mistakes with that. Another tip I want to give you guys about fishing in a hard wind is don't ever try to fish into the wind. There's really only one situation that you ever have to fish into the wind in a hard wind, and that is if you're throwing at a specific spot. Let's say that you got a brush pile, that the fish are on the brush pile, or a rock pile, and you have to make a cast to one spot. That's the only time that you need to face into the wind for boat control. but I have found a lot more success going with the wind. It's like when you're going with the wind, you can make a longer cast, your line lays better on the cast, you can be a lot more quieter, you're not on the trolling motor, and it's actually a positive thing. You can sneak up on those fish. You can just keep the boat pointed in one direction and let the wind blow you, and you'd be amazed how many more fish you catch when you're not on that trolling motor with it. So don't consider it a bad thing, because really a lot of the better days I've had fishing ever have been on those real windy days. One of the things you'll have to do on a windy day is you'll have to pick areas of the lake that benefit from that wind, because some areas simply don't benefit it. Like, for example, if you're fishing the back end of a protected cove or creek that's, got some high banks on it, if it's windy, you're not taking advantage of that wind. But if you're out more on the main body of the lake and you've got those waves crashing against a bank or crashing against a point, it gets the algae and the plankton stirred up, it gets the bait fish stirred up, it gets the predator fish stirred up. So that's another good place to target when you're fishing windy days, is on those areas that are getting hit directly by the wind. So that's just a quick overview of wind, guys. We'll do more stuff on it, but maybe that'll give you some guidance to point you in the right direction. Hope it helps you guys catch a few. So we'll talk later.